Krishna.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have to put it on.
Shri Radha Gopinath ki jai. Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maharani ki jai. Shri Gauranitai ki jai. Jaya Gopi Janavalabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Janavalabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Yasodanandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Yasodanandana Jaya Braja Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Vihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Shri Prabhupada ki, Harinam Prabhu ki. Om Namah, Om Jnanatimirandasya, Jnananjana Shalakaya, Chakshurunmilitam Yena, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuttapadakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Vitamscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopika Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Anchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Thank you so much. Sorry for the slow start. Hare Krishna, good morning. Welcome to Srimad Bhagavatam class. Today we're lucky to read from the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, the 87th chapter, the prayers of personified Vedas, and we'll read from verse 34. Before I start we start reading the verse together, I just wanted to first of all, ask your blessings. Today is an auspicious day of actually Lord Narottam Das Thakur's disappearance day. Hopefully we can also speak a little bit about that, about his this special day. But also I feel there's so much nectar to be spoken about, so hopefully we can be in tune. So the chapter we're reading from is very interesting chapter. I was intrigued when Gopinath Acharya Prabhu said this is his favorite chapter of Bhagavatam, and I was thinking, wow, there must be some nectar that I'm not yet familiar with. And it's very interesting because we're actually reading about a story which is told by, who is speaking Bhagavatam. We know Sutta Goswami is speaking to sages of Naimisharanya. But there's a whole story within a story here, which is very actually significant and also kind of common to Srimad Bhagavatam. We many times hear of sages speaking amongst each other about topics of Krishna, and they speak how another person was speaking, and we hear all these very intimate conversations actually that we would never have access to. So we can try to imagine how this conversation was actually happening. So within the 87th chapter, we can hear how this story or this narration was happening. So first of all, there was a question: how can we describe somebody who is undescribable by words, by material, capacity of anyone, who is basically, he's undescribable. It's just impossible to properly describe the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this same question was asked, Parikshit Goswami asked, Parikshit Maharaj asked Shukadev Goswami. And Shukadev Goswami said, oh, this is a very good question. The same question was asked by Narada Muni to Narayan Rishi. And Sri Narayan Rishi at that time wanted to answer Narada Muni. And what he said was, yes, I can tell you all about it. The same question was actually spoken about amongst the residents of Janaloka, which is a very, very exalted place, actually. That's where the sages and very, very exalted personalities live. So amongst the residents of Janaloka, they chose Sanandana Kumar. So we know the Kumaras, they were sons of Brahma, Lord Brahma, so very exalted personalities. So they chose him to speak on this same topic. And Sanandana Kumar told this story that we're reading about right now. So you see how there was a story within the story. So he actually spoke about how the personified Vedas and Upanishads were actually glorifying the Lord. They were actually waking him up. This was just before the creation. And they were actually glorifying him and speaking all these very intimate things. And we can see how the verses, there are 50 verses in this chapter, and every verse is different, right? There's different aspect or angle to how they describe Krishna or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Jiva Goswami says that's because there were different Upanishads speaking, and they all had different, relationship with the Supreme Lord. There were some very intimate Upanishads, like we read in 23rd verse, Gopal Tapani Upanishad, who spoke about the desire of the Vedas that they want to actually participate in rasa dance and so on. So beautiful, beautiful narrations. Okay, so we can now read what this particular Upanishad spoke. The whole chapter is called Shruti Gita because it's basically song of the Shrutis or Upanishads. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Svajana Sutat Madara Dhanadam Madara Suratais. Madara Dhanadam Madara Suratais. Tvai Satikim Rinam Shrayata Atmani Sarvarase. Tvai Satikim Rinam Atmani Sarvarase. Iti Sadajanatam Itunato Rataye Charatam. Sukayanti kon vihasva vihate svanirasta bhage.
Sukayati konvitani svadite svanirashtabhage.
Svajana sutat madara dhanada madara suratais.
Svajana sudat madara madara suratais.
Tvai sati kim nrinam shrayata atmani sarvarase.
Tvayi sati kendrina sahayata atmani sarvarase.
Iti sadajanatam itunato rataye charatam.
Iti satajanatam itam katorataye charatam.
Sukayati kon vihasva vihate svanirasta bhage.
Sukayati konvihasva vihate svanirashtabhage.
Somebody like to try?
Swajana sutat madara dana madara shuratai.
Svajana sata madara dhanada madara suratais.
Vayi sati kindam srayata atmani sarvarase.
Tvai sati kim nrinam shrayata atmani sarvarase.
Iti satat janatam itunatorataye charatam.
Iti sadajanatam itunato rataye charatam.
Kayati konviya swavini vihate svanirashtabhage.
Sukayati kon vihasva vihate svanirasta bhage. Svajana sutta madara dhanada madara suratais. Vai sati kim nrinam sayata atmani sarvarase. Iti sadajanatam itunato rataye charatam. Sukayati kon vihasva vihate svanirasta bhage. Read this.
Swajana sutat madaratana tamatare darashuratai.
Svajanam sutat madara dhanada madara suratais.
Tvayi sati kimrinam shrayata atmani sarvarase.
Tvai sati kim nrinam shrayata atmani sarvarase.
Iti sadajanatam mitunato rataye charatam.
Iti sataka janatam mitunato rataye charatam.
Sukayati kon vihaswa vihate swanirastabhage.
Sukayati kon vihasva vihate svanirasta bhage. Svajana with servants. Suta, children. Atma, body. Dara, wife. Dhana, money. Dhama, home. Dhara, land. Asu, vitality. Radhai, and vehicles. Tvai, when you. Sati, have become. Kim, what. Use. Nrinam, for human beings. Shrayata, who are taking shelter. Atmani, their very self. Sarvarase, the embodiment of all pleasures. Iti, thus. Sat, the truth. Ajanatam, for those who fail to appreciate. Mitunata, from sexual combinations. Rataye, for sensual indulgence. Karatam, carrying on. Sukayati, gives happiness. Ka, what. nu,
nu,
at all.
at all.
Iha,
Iha,
in this world.
in this world.
Sva,
Sva,
by its very nature.
by its very nature.
Vihate,
Vihate,
which is subject to destruction.
which is subject to destruction.
Sva,
Sva,
by its very nature.
by its very nature.
Nirasta,
Nirasta,
which is devoid.
which is devoid.
Bhage,
Bhage,
of any essence.
any essence.
Translation. To those persons who take shelter of you, you reveal yourself as the Supersoul, the embodiment of all transcendental pleasure. What further use have such devotees for their servants, children, or bodies, their wives, money, or houses, their land, good health, or conveniences? And for those who fail to appreciate the truth about you and go on pursuing the pleasures of sex, what could there be in this entire world, a place of inherently doomed to destruction and devoid of significance that could give them real happiness? Purport. Devotional service to Lord Vishnu is considered pure when one's sole desire is to please the Lord. Situated in that perfect consciousness, a Vaishnava has no further interest in worldly gains and is thus excused from any obligation to perform ritual sacrifices and follow austere penances of yoga. As the Mundaka Upanishad states, when a Brahmana recognizes that elevation to the heavenly planets is merely another accumulation of karma, he becomes renounced and is no longer corrupted by his actions. The Brihadaranyaka and Katha Upanishads confirm, when a person completely gives up all the sinful desires he is harboring in his heart, he exchanges mortality for eternal spiritual life and attains real pleasure in the absolute truth. And the Kapala Tapani Upanishad concludes, devotional service is the process of worshipping the Supreme Lord. It consists of fixing one's mind upon Him by becoming disinterested in all material designations, both in this life and the next. This, indeed, is true renunciation. The items the Shrutis mention here are all measures of worldly success. Svajana, servants; Atma, a beautiful body; Sutta, children to be proud of; Dara, an attractive and competent spouse; Dhanam, financial assets; Dhama, a prestigious residence; Dhara, holdings of land; Ashavaha, health and strength; and Rataha, cars and other vehicles that displays one's status. But one who has begun to experience the ecstasy of devotional service loses all attraction for these things, since he finds real satisfaction in the Supreme Lord, the reservoir of all pleasure, who enjoys by sharing his own pleasures with his servitors. We are each free to choose the course of our life. We can either dedicate our body, mind, words, talents, and wealth to the glory of God, or else we can ignore Him and struggle instead for our personal happiness. The second path leads to a life of slavery to sex and ambition, in which the soul never feels real satisfaction, but instead suffers continually. Vaishnavas are distressed to see materialists suffering in this way, and so they always strive to enlighten them. Srila Sridhar Swami prays, Bhajato hi bhavan sakshat paramananda chittahana atmaiva kim ata krityam tuchadara sutadibi. For those who worship you, you become their very self, their spiritual treasure of topmost bliss. What further use have they for mundane wives, children, and so forth? This ends the purport. So, beautiful verse, which so clearly describes what happens when we become devotees, real devotees, which means that we're totally giving our life and devoted to service of the Supreme. And I like to see this verse as a very inspiring verse and something that actually is to look forward rather than thinking, oh, how entangled we are. And I would like to try to speak from this angle, because indeed the verse mentions once we have the higher taste, which we spoke a lot about yesterday in yesterday's class, then a person like that doesn't see any point in accumulating all these things or being proud of all the things that he or she has achieved. And they basically fall away. The person doesn't have to necessarily artificially renounce things in their life, even if they have achieved wonderful things in their life, just because of their focus on the service of Krishna and Supreme. All those things will actually just be secondary. And that's the beauty of our devotional process that Srila Prabhupada gave us. So literally what we're doing is we're engaging in service in different aspects, like hearing, chanting, worshipping, remembering, serving others, and so on. And by this, actually, we're attaining higher taste. Day by day, this taste is actually increasing, and automatically the things that we actually perhaps possess or get by the fruits of our karma and so on will actually not have that much significance, or we will be able to use them in the Lord's service so much better. Personally, I was also inspired how Srila Sridhar Swami, who is the commentator on Srimad Bhagavatam, for this particular chapter, he actually writes prayer at the end of, I think, almost every verse. So basically what he does is he takes inspiration from the verse from Bhagavatam and writes his own prayer, which will help him to meditate and come closer to the goal that's being described here. So something very beautiful to perhaps take as an inspiration as well for us. So one of the main points that I would like to take from this verse is about the relationship with Super Soul, because the verse speaks about that to those persons who actually take shelter of you, you reveal yourself as the Super Soul, the embodiment of all transcendental pleasure. And if you allow me, I would like to refer back to a wonderful, wonderful lecture that Sachinandana Swami gave here in Radhadesh during the Holy Name Immersion Retreat. It was a very, very powerful event, and I hope that we can have more of these events in the future. And in one of the discovery lectures, he spoke about this. He actually, I think, wanted us to understand that Krishna manifested personally for us in our heart, something that's actually very hard to accept fully and embrace, I feel. And I would like to touch upon that topic, how actually Prabhupada is trying to convince us again and again, and we'll read more about that actually Krishna came especially for us, meaning we have a personal relationship with him, and he actually wants us to revive that. And it's not up to him, but it's up to us to turn to him and actually connect. So one of the main points here is how, even though we know Prabhupada gave us beautiful scriptures, he gave us the chanting of the holy name, he told us even Krishna is present in the holy name, he's right there. How is it that we are still seemingly missing the obvious? We are chanting every day, we're reading the scriptures, we're associating with devotees who tell us about Krishna, and still we fail sometimes to recognize that he is right here. So if you allow me, I will tell a joke, which Maharaj said will actually portray this beautiful point of how we can miss the obvious. So there was a man who was living between Persia and Turkey, and he was coming to the border. And he came on a donkey. And to this toll station, and the people who were there, the officers, stopped him, and he said, "I'm so sinful, I'm smuggling, I'm so sinful. I should be a good Sufi teacher. I don't know, but I'm smuggling. I'm terrible. And the officers asked him, but what are you smuggling? And he said, this is your job. You have to find that. But yeah. And so the officers tried to, searched everywhere, the donkey. They only found a basket of grass to be fed to the donkey, and they couldn't find anything. So they let him go. They thought, okay, just bewildered man. So this man, after some months, comes back on a donkey. And the same scenario, I'm so sinful, I'm smuggling, I'm so sinful, terrible of me. Officers bewildered again. They ask him, what are you smuggling? You have to figure that out, it's your job. So again, they searched him, even like the whole dress and everything. They tried to find what he's smuggling. And the donkey, they searched everywhere, only the basket of grass, nothing else they could find. So by now the officers thought, okay, this man is perhaps deliric, so they let him go. So this happened again and again for years to come. The man came on a donkey. He was always feeling terribly bad that he's smuggling, and they couldn't find anything. And after some time, so many years, they saw how next to the border there's a big mansion growing. So the man actually built a mansion. And one of the officers who was not on duty anymore met this man and asked him, I'm really wondering all these years what was happening, that you were feeling so terribly bad, that you were smuggling, but we couldn't find anything. And the man said, well, I was smuggling donkeys. So he was basically taking donkeys to another country and earning money like this, and he was smuggling, and he was very honest about it. So they missed the obvious fact that the man was actually smuggling donkeys, which was right in front of their face. So I think Maharaj wanted to say this joke just to portray a little bit how sometimes most of the time, we're missing the obvious fact how Krishna is actually present while we're chanting, while we're reading the Shastra, while we're associating with devotees. And I really would like to tell the story of Vaidarbhi. Maybe some of you know the story of Vaidarbhi. It's from 4th canto in Bhagavatam. It's basically an allegory which Narada Muni is speaking to King Prachinabarhi, and he's trying to tell him, look, live this material life, you have to aspire for higher truth. But he told him a story about King Puranjana and how King Puranjana in the next life became Vaidarbhi. The very significant part of this story is when Vaidarbhi's husband, who was very, very great Vaishnava, actually left his body in a trance. So he just left. She came every morning to massage his feet, and his name was Malayadvaja. He just left his body in a perfect trance. So she was, of course, devastated, and she didn't know how to continue. She was completely, how will I now continue my service? This was her only connection she felt. And so she built a funeral pyre to burn the body of her husband, and of course to enter herself as well. And at that moment, a Brahmana came into the picture. And this is a very beautiful narration of Brahmana speaking to Vaidarbhi. He asked, "Who are you?" He asked Vaidarbhi. "Whose wife or daughter are you? Who is the man lying here? It appears you're lamenting for this dead body. Don't you recognize me? I am your eternal friend. You may remember that many times in the past you have consulted me." And if we read Prabhupada's commentaries in these verses, they're so beautiful. They're really like Prabhupada trying to convince us, look, you are a soul, you have eternal relationship with Krishna, and he's in your heart and he's guiding you constantly. So Prabhupada says the Paramatma is always the Chaitya Guru, the spiritual master within, and he comes before one externally as an instructor and initiating spiritual master. So is Shiksha and Diksha Guru. So he says that Paramatma actually manifests externally as well. The Lord can reside within the heart, and he can also come out before a person and give him instructions. Then he speaks more, but in the end he says, thus a sincere devotee is always helped directly or indirectly by the spiritual master and the super soul. Yeah. And then the next verse where Brahmana continues. There's a little discussion where Brahmana is trying to convince Vaidarbhi that he is the forgotten friend. Brahmana continued, verse 53. My dear friend, even though you cannot immediately recognize me, can't you remember that in the past you had a very intimate friend? Unfortunately, you gave up my company and accepted a position as enjoyer of this material world. So he tries to remind her, you had a friend. Do you remember there's some intimacy that you're actually hankering for in this world and lamenting for things that are not worthy lamenting for? So in the next verse, this Brahmana reveals her about the situation of two swans who live. You will hear. My dear gentle friend, both you and I are exactly like two swans. We live together in the same heart, which is just like the Manasa lake. Although we have been living together for many thousands of years, we are still far away from our original home, which means the spiritual realm. So Prabhupada comments, because of his forgetfulness, the living entity does not know that the Supreme Lord is accompanying him as the Super Soul. Although the Lord follows him as a friend, the living entity, because of forgetful material existence, does not recognize him. So he says, basically, Krishna is following us. He's coming and again. He manifests just for us in our heart, but we don't recognize him. And we'll see later what are some of the reasons. So the Brahmana says, my dear friend, you are now my very same friend. Since you left me, you have become more and more materialistic, and not seeing me, you have been traveling in different forms throughout this material world, which was created by some woman. And by this he means the external energy of the Lord or Maya, or Prakriti. So Prabhupada comments that the conditioned soul has been wandering within this material world since time immemorial. So many lifetimes we have been wandering after we have forgotten that Krishna is actually the one we're looking for. And then he says, the living entity wanders into many species of life, but he is fortunate when he once again meets his friend, either in person or through his representative. So how fortunate we are that we have met Krishna again through our acharyas. Prabhupada just speaks about how much a pity it is that we actually have met Krishna through his representative, through our guru, but we still don't take the instructions seriously. And yes, just the last verse that I want to mention from this part, chapter 28 from 4th canto, is text 64, where Brahmana says, in this way both swans live together in the heart. When one swan, I think this is Prabhupada actually speaking, when one swan is instructed by the other, he is situated in his constitutional position. So the key here that no matter what, even if we are so conditioned and we have become much more entangled in the material world, still the Lord remains with us as an intimate friend. And that's the key that Prabhupada tries to convey to us. Just to make a little more emphasis on this, Prabhupada again quotes that in 7th canto, 7th verse 38. He says, the Lord is so friendly, this is such a beautiful sentence, that the living entity, he's so friendly to the living entity that he remains in the heart so that one can always contact him without difficulty. So Prabhupada clearly states that, but again, we might have been overlooking the obvious. We might be looking for solutions outside, solutions to our suffering, to our misery, to our bewilderment, to our lack of things outside. Wonderful if we have been looking that in the Guru, of course, and trying to see how to be guided further, but have we looked also within the heart and trying to see how to contact the Lord? So I have not brought a mirror, but there is a very nice way to understand why is this happening to us. Why are we really overlooking the obvious, even though we have so many instructions on this matter? So we can see a mirror. Yeah, mirror is actually just a piece of transparent glass. So transparent glass, if we look through it, we can see the other side. You know, so in this analogy, through mirror, through the glass, normally we would see the reality on the other side. But because the mirror has actually a thin layer of silver or aluminium behind, this transparent glass becomes non-transparent. So all we can see is our own reflection, basically our own mind, our own worries, and our own self. So we become the center. So this is actually the reason why we cannot, even if we want to see the reality, we cannot. Because our consciousness actually has become dusted over with material desires. So this layer is our material desires, and then because of the desires, all we can see is ourselves. And our troubled mind. Why is our mind troubled? So why is it when we look in this mirror, our mind is troubled? It's because actually we're looking for something that we cannot get in this world. We cannot actually find any love of God, which we're actually looking for as the soul. So this whole process of chanting and hearing and performing devotional service is actually removing the dust from the mind of material desires and from the heart, of course. So if we remember the Shikshashtakam verse, Lord Chaitanya is actually speaking about this process of cleansing the mind, the mirror of the mind. And if we continue with this process, we'll be able to actually perceive Krishna in our lives. So, yeah, let's see. Krishna always loves us, and Prabhupada many times speaks about how his love can be most compared to the love of the mother. If we see mothers, you know, even when the babies are small, it's not that we love them less because they can't do anything for us. We're literally in service 24 hours a day, fathers as well, you know, just constantly serving and focusing on the little child. And even though they can't reciprocate, the mother still has love for them. She still continues to serve them and nourish them and do everything and follow them everywhere and so on. You know, when you see little children, then mothers usually go after them. They have to protect them and so on. So, you know, no matter what happens to the child, mother will love them unconditionally. So that's the love that actually Prabhupada compares Krishna's love towards us. And he mentioned, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur always has these beautiful commentaries on Bhagavatam. So in the 10th canto, one of the commentaries he gives is, he says that the Lord is grateful even for the gifts that the person has not been given yet. So even if we have not given things yet, he's already grateful. He has, state of his heart is that he's always grateful. And he reciprocates with gifts that will be given in the future. He already reciprocates. So, you know, like constantly trying to convince us, Lord is wonderful, he's there for us. So we only need to turn to him. And so, yeah. Once Bhakti Charu Swami asked Prabhupada, but Prabhupada, Paramatma in the soul, in the heart, is Vishnu, in the Vishnu form, like we read in the 2nd canto, right? And Prabhupada says, actually for a devotee that worships Krishna, Paramatma is Tribhanga Krishna. He says he's Tribhanga Krishna, not Vishnu. And also Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati said that when the eyes are smeared with salve of love, actually for that devotee, Krishna in the heart is Murlidhar Krishna or Tribhanga Krishna. So it's very important to understand that for a devotee who actually is developing relationship with the Lord is actually taking this form in his heart. So we were trying to address the question why we still don't believe actually that Krishna is in the holy name or in the heart. Is it perhaps because we don't experience him present? Is it because we are too busy with our own things going on in our minds? And we need to actually face the problem that we might be overseeing the obvious, like Maharaj said in the class. So if we look at the Mahamantra, Mahamantra is like a mantra with many layers of meaning, right? We know Mahamantra as the words that we're chanting, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We also know it's a transcendental vibration. We have the meaning that Prabhupada gave us, dear Lord, please engage us in your service. And there's actually so many more layers to the mantra that we might not see with our present understanding. Maharaj gave a good example of like, do you see my mind? Do you know what I'm thinking right now? So there's many layers to the personality of the person as well. There's many layers that we don't see actually. We only see the physical body, even that we don't see everything that's going on within the body. And then there's the subtle body, and there's intelligence, and there's other layers which we cannot perceive. So the same is to the personality of Mahamantra actually. There's many layers which we cannot perceive, and we still don't perhaps have access to fully. And I would like us to remember how actually Prabhupada spoke. This is Sevan Mukha, this is Nectar of Devotion, isn't it? This verse that actually for a person who actually performs devotional service and becomes Sevan Mukha, to that person the holy name will be revealed, Krishna will be revealed. And we basically have to turn towards Krishna. And like if we want to catch water with a cup which is turned upside down, we will not catch any water, right? So we have to turn our cup basically to open up ourselves to mercy so that we can actually perceive how Krishna is present. In the service. So just as a last point before I wanted to address shortly the Narottam Das Thakur's disappearance day. So for us, what we can do in this relationship when our heart is covered with dust of material desires and we actually can't always perceive the obvious, but Krishna is there, what we can do is actually constantly turn back to service and try to serve and beg for mercy that we be able to receive the mercy of the Lord while we're chanting the holy name, and just keep on understanding that actually Krishna is there. And whenever any instances come, like yesterday we heard Lila Shakti Mataji sharing how during Kirtan she felt an amazing experience, how holy name just lifted everybody from the ground, she didn't feel the earth. And so such experiences that we actually reflect on and remember that Krishna did reveal to us, some part of his potency and some part of his relationship with us through chanting, through associating with devotees, and so on. So we have 5 more minutes. Maybe I can ask for comments and questions or whatever is there for you from this class, and then we can see if we have a few minutes to still speak about Narottam Das Thakur.
Thank you for reminding us of our best friend. I was contemplating on your point that Paramatma is Vishnu, but for Krishna Bhakta he becomes, Tribhanga or Murlidhar form. So there is one verse in the Chaitanya Charitamrita which says, Stavara Jangama Deke Na Deke Taramurti Savatra Hoy Nitya Ishta Deva Spurti. It's a very beautiful verse. It's very much connected with what you said, is that you have non-moving and moving living entities, but the pure devotee doesn't see their form. Na deke taramurti. doesn't see their external form. Sarvatra hoy, nitya ishtadeva spurti. They always see their worshipable Lord, their Ishtadev, in the hearts of all of those living entities. So actually this could prove the point that was given. And Krishna says, I reciprocate according to the mood of my devotees. So I never thought that connection, that instead of the four-armed form, actually for a devotee, he doesn't see the four-armed form Vishnu, he sees really his Ishtadev. Maybe he sees Gopinath in the heart of all living entities. So,
thank you so much. Thank you. Nice point.
I guess at the beginning of the class, maybe I didn't hear properly, but I was thinking I heard something like, let's not look at the aspects that were like missing, I suppose, or the downsides of having material success, is something like that, along those lines. I guess I'm just thinking also in my mind, hearing your class, I'm thinking about preparing my next verse. But I'm preparing, I guess. I don't know, I was just trying to see if you could say something on the fruitiveness. There's a lot of delineation of what's, it's being specified in this verse, and I was just wondering, like, if you have thoughts on like why Shastra does that, specifies, goes into details, and
So you're asking why are there so many like concrete examples of this material success or entanglements, that why Shastra is doing that? So what do you think? Because one would be like, obviously that people are in the world, even the commentators on this verse at the end, so Prabhupada's disciples say how actually the devotee who sees how people are entangled, with having a beautiful wife, or oh, my husband is so successful, oh, I've achieved such a rank in my job or position, oh, I have such a beautiful car that the company gave me, or my children are amazing, look at how they can recite this or that, or what else is there? Yeah, I have so much fortune, I can just totally depend on that, I don't have to worry about my pension and so on. All these things are very fleeting, right? Very fleeting. So actually, in any moment, any of these things, by providence of karma, can be taken away. The capacity of our spouse, or of our own, or our job, position, car, very obvious things that can be taken away in a split second. But the material energy is so powerful, so powerful, and so disabling of living entities that. One really thinks that's it in that moment, So I guess we have to hear again and again, actually, these things are fleeting, and when you have a higher taste, that will not be important. So if a person hears like that and thinks, oh, so that's lower than so one starts to see slowly and slowly, it's not about the material success, it's not about us being in the world, but it's really about attaining closer connection with the Supreme and the spiritual people, the spiritual personalities, the devotees. So I guess hearing that again and again and again, something quote unquote rubs off on our heart. We start to understand. And sometimes it takes us experience in life to see, oh, that's what the Shastra was talking about. This is what Prabhupada is meaning by that. How that is all fleeting and not satisfying to the heart. I think that's maybe, for me personally, even one of the main things that why we are looking for all these things in the world, or why in general people are looking for the success and things grandiose, and because there's some dissatisfaction, inner dissatisfaction constantly driving the person in the world. And because of this lack, trying to find that, even feeling lonely, for example, constantly trying to fill that gap with other people. It might also be exhausting, So whatever it is, the lack, if we don't search within, or with spiritual people who are situated properly and can guide us, it will be frustrating nonetheless. So, yeah, thank you for a question. Looking forward to class. Some other comments you have? Or is it 9 o'clock? Can I dare to take 2 minutes to glorify, to speak a little bit about Narottam Das Thakur? Today is the auspicious day of his disappearance day. Like so many actually, just recently also, Raghunath Das Goswami, Raghunath Bhatta Goswami, there's many actually in this period of time. And Narottam Das Thakur, there's actually many things that we could speak about him, but I want to focus a little bit on his last period when he was actually leaving this world. With the fact of how hearing about such amazing personalities is actually very purifying. It's not just stories we hear, but it's actually like associating with amazing personalities in our Gaudiya Vaishnava heritage, and we have connection to them by grace of Srila Prabhupada. We actually have awareness and writings and knowledge about them. So Narottam Das Thakur, why he's special for many, many things. His songs, poems, beautiful pastimes of how he was one of the three who was distributing literature of the Goswamis. But one important thing which happened towards the end of his life was that he actually inaugurated Gaur Purnim festival. So after Lord Chaitanya departed, he was in this agony of separation. What can I do? What can I do? The mission of Lord Chaitanya will die off. We have to somehow or other find a way, which was actually the reason why Lord Chaitanya empowered Narottam Das Thakur. He knew he will be actually continuing the Sankirtan movement. So Narottam Das Thakur inaugurated a festival of Gaur Purnima in Keturi. That was just quite some years after Lord Chaitanya left. So he installed 6 pairs of deities. There was a big festival, became very famous. So actually, after this festival, Keturi Gram became very famous. So a lot of people started to kind of pour in and wanted to see the temple they inaugurated and deities and meet all these personalities that lived there. So it became a little bit too busy for Narottam Das Thakur. And he wanted some solitude and to absorb also more in bhajan. So with his dear friend and disciple, if I understand correctly, Ramachandra Kaviraj, he made Bhajan Kutir a little bit away from Keturi Gram. And once Srinivasacharya came and asked Ramachandra to go with him to Braj. And that would of course break Narottam Das Thakur's heart because he felt so much companionship with Ramachandra Kaviraj. But he said, no, you must go. So Ramachandra Kaviraj left. And Narottam Das Thakur was now plunged in separation even more. So everybody left, all the acharyas, all these great personalities, Lord Chaitanya and the Goswamis left. So disciples became a little concerned. What will happen to Narottam Das Thakur? So one of them, prominent Ganganarayan Chakravarti, came and suggested to Narottam Das Thakur, we can actually maybe take a Ganga Snan next to my house. So that's a 3-hour drive from where Keturi Gram is. So they went on a long pilgrimage to Ganga and they took a bath in Ganges. And once Narottam Das Thakur lay on the bank, he was not moving, he didn't get up anymore. And the disciples became super concerned because they understood he actually wants to leave his body. So Ganganarayan Chakravarti begged him, please don't leave, stay with us. So he actually woke up at that time and was back and stayed alive for some more time. We don't know how long, and went back to Keturi Gram even. But then at one point again, he called Narayan Chakravarti and said, I want to do Snan again in Ganges. I really have this desire, I have to go back to the Ganges. And now Ganganarayan Chakravarti was heartbroken because he knew what that meant now. He knew that's time when Narottam Das Thakur will want to leave. But he had no choice because he wanted to follow the instruction of his guru. So at the time when Narottam Das Thakur entered the Ganges, he asked the disciples to bathe him. And this is actually something really astounding what happened. as they poured water on the body of Narottam Das Thakur, his body began to dissolve into the Ganges, into the water of the Ganges. And that's actually very mystical and very amazing, because we have heard before people's hearts melt in ecstasy, but actual bodies dissolve of so much love and so much ecstasy, actually. So it's inconceivable how much love Narottam Das Thakur had. So because of this, actually, then the disciples collected the milk which was mixed with the Ganges and the tears of the disciples, and they made a samadhi called Dudh Samadhi, which means milk samadhi, a samadhi of milk. And that we can still find if you go to Vrindavan, Radha Gokulananda courtyard of the temple. There is his samadhi, and also Lokanath Goswami and many prominent Vaishnavas. So, I wanted to encourage us on today's day. Actually, if you listen to Sachinandana Swami's Kartik Inspirations, he was mentioning that today, that it's so powerful to read about the lives of our acharyas, because they're, just such extraordinary personalities. And if we want to start to speak and live and act and serve like them, we need to hear more about their lives. So, thank you so much for sharing this with us. Hare Krishna, Srila Narottam Das Thakur ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Srila Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Gaur Pramanande.
Grace Mangala Candrika dasi ki jai. Thank you for a beautiful class.
Thank you. This is for encouragement. Always needed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I still have some strength. Thank you.
I was thinking related to the question of Vishwa.
Yes.
That sometimes you get such a detailed sum up of all the different allurements, and I was thinking it might also be there, because if there are only a few allurements